key condition which cannot be abandoned or waived. Otherwise, we will be pouring the noble blood of the martyrs down the drains. The key term was President Mubarak must step down in order to usher into a democratic phase. I cannot see any genuineness or seriousness on the part of the regime.
The government, though, is keen to play up the meeting as a positive one, in the same way it's trying to show that life away from the demonstrations is getting back to normal. Banks opened for 3 hours for the first time in almost 2 weeks. The move was welcomed by business owners on the start of the working week. In the cities of Cairo, Alexandria and Suez, thousands are out in force again on Sunday. Emiko Molu, Al Jazeera.
As we continue to look at these live pictures of Tahrir Square, where it is now just gone past 6 p.m. on day 13 of these demonstrations, let's talk to one of our correspondents in Cairo. We're not naming him for safety reasons. How are the political maneuvers that we've seen today, with many in the opposition, including the Muslim Brotherhood, now engaging in direct talks with the government, affecting the dynamics that you see in and around Tahrir Square?
Well, the situation, Gita, is still very unclear. You have this talking up of this process by the regime, positive, they say. A roadmap for talks is now in place, they say. Then when you speak to the opposition groups, disparate, but together in one room over this, most of them anyway, they say this was really just a listening process. This was a gesture to find out really where it was going, whether this was really window dressing these changes. There's a lot of development within the regime, but the end result, when you come to it, is that still no change. The main demand, Hosni Mubarak standing down, is still not being fulfilled, and all of these opposition groups are saying that that has to take place. They say that the reforms mentioned, including freedom of the press, really don't amount to any real positive change, and that the reformist elements within the new regime are optimistic in some ways about that, but still not confident until this figurehead is removed. And that is the sticking point, Gaida.
And while that continues, is there a sense among many in the crowds in Tahrir Square, those you've been able to speak with, that the government is exploiting this now by allowing these protests to continue without an end in sight, by pursuing what might be an effective strategy in the end, buying time, making concession after concession to the demonstrators? Or could it be a strategic mistake which ends up empowering and emboldening those who've been there, by them concluding in the end that the more they stay put, the more concessions they might get?
I would say that there really is a question mark over that, Gita. That the position really is that that the emboldened youth who were represented to some extent here still feel that they will stay as long as it takes. It's keeping that momentum going. I mean, today you had this contrast between the grief in Liberation Square, prayers for the martyrs both by Coptic Christians and Muslims alike, and then only a few blocks away, an attempt to get back to normal, and looking right across this city of 18 million people, businesses trying to reopen, the banks open for a mere 3 hours with queues for people getting their pensions. Remember, there are only 10% of Egyptians who have bank accounts, but there was a desperate need for money to get food on the table. And then this dichotomy, really, of particularly the lower middle classes who feel with their hearts that the situation is that they back these protesters right the way through. They desperately want Mubarak to stand down, but with their minds, the practicality of it is, well, maybe enough has been given. There is dialogue now, and so the hope lies there. And the government, you're right, the government may well be playing this to really ride this out and to make normality seem apparent and build that, while the resistance drips away and eventually sort of gets to a point whereby it isn't as disruptive to normal life as it is right now.
Thanks very much indeed for now. Obviously, the protesters still out in Tahrir Square in big numbers, showing no signs of being deterred, at least not for the moment. Well, Al Jazeera has meanwhile received video which appears to show the intense fighting that's taken place in Cairo and Alexandria over the last week. This report now by Alan Fisher contains some violent images which some people may find disturbing.
This is central Cairo on Wednesday night. After a day of running battles between pro and anti-Mubarak supporters, the two sides face off again on a bridge near Liberation Square. Gunshots can be clearly heard. Rocks and petrol bombs are thrown. As the shots continue, people seem unmoved, but as they get closer and more sustained, they begin to duck. The camera finds a man laid out on the ground, his friends trying to lift him. A hand goes up, almost pleading for time for the shooting to stop. But more shots ring out, and two more people fall to the ground. If we watch in slow motion, at the bottom of the screen, there are bright flashes where it appears the bullets hit the metal rail of the bridge. These people are anti-government protesters. They claim the shots came from the army. Al Jazeera has no way of confirming their allegations. As those on the bridge run, trying to get a safe distance away, others drag those who fell from the scene. This video has now emerged on YouTube. It's dated 28th of January when there were protests in Alexandria. As this man approaches what appears to be police, a single shot is fired. We have no way of knowing if the man survived. The Egyptian authorities say 11 people have been killed in the unrest across the country. The United Nations says it's more than 300. Alan Fisher, Al Jazeera.
Well, let's get some more now from Alexandria, our correspondent. You're in what is considered to be one of the Muslim Brotherhood's main strongholds in the country. How has the group's participation in these direct discussions with the government been received among the protesters? Do they feel that it constitutes a major U-turn, a major compromise?
Well, initially there was that fear and criticism from the streets here in Alexandria. Many people were surprised by the fact that the Muslim Brotherhood met face-to-face with Omar Suleiman and with members of the current Mubarak regime. However, the Brotherhood was quick to allay any fears, saying that these were not negotiations. It was just a chance for them to hear what the government had to offer. And the moment they felt that the government wasn't serious, they withdrew from them. They said the only reason why they agreed to meet with Suleiman was because state television had been accusing them of being the barrier between national reconciliation or national unity. Having said that, Rida, looking at a demonstration which has easily more than 100,000 people here in Alexandria, you're talking about people who have braved not only scenes, as we just saw in our last report, of violence, but also heavy rain, which has come down for some time now in the Mediterranean city. The people are undeterred. In fact, it seems every day as the day comes, as day begins, we think there may be some sort of lull in the pro-democracy, anti-Mubarak demonstrators. However, as time goes by and the afternoon comes and night falls, those numbers just seem to increase, and people begin to come after work or leave their homes to join their comrades in what they believe is the most patriotic of causes, as many of them have put it to me, Rida.
Protesters in Alexandria, though, I must imagine, feeling that those protesting in Cairo must have far more leverage on the situation, be in a far better position to bring about change. Do they feel that there needs to be some kind of change in tactics, that as long as the protesters remain in Tahrir Square, not much is going to change?
Well, there is that talk, and many have touted the idea of moving those protests from Tahrir or Liberation Square to the presidential palace. Even here in Alexandria, it's important for our audience to know that President Mubarak also has two presidential palaces here, Basitine Palace and the palace in Muntaza, which used to be, funnily enough, King Farouk's Palace. In fact, Ras al-Tin Palace is where former King Farouk was ousted and forced to leave during the coup led by military man Gamal Abdel Nasser, who then went on to become the president. So today I heard word of people thinking, rather than converging on the main street here, Shara Abu Qir, in front of Sidi Gaba train station, that maybe they will want to regather in front of Ras al-Tin Palace. But we're not sure exactly where things will go next.
Thanks very much for updating us on the situation in Alexandria. Meanwhile, dozens of journalists have already been detained, injured or threatened doing their jobs in Egypt. A reporter also died from a gunshot wound. Al Jazeera's Ayman Muhyiddin, as you're well aware, is among those in custody at the moment. We're appealing for his immediate release. Let's talk now to Mohammed Abdel Dayem. He's the Middle East and North Africa Programme Coordinator for the Committee to Protect Journalists.